Here we are just off the Kotel. There's the plaza. Temple is to the right. This leads to the door. And down below is where the group is. And Bonnie should be down there. They're looking at the southern end of it. Well, not quite the southern end. This is still part of the western wall, almost to the southern end. This is the southern wall of the temple, and we'll be back down here in a few minutes. I'm behind the group a little bit. They've gone up this way, and they're over just out of view down below that wall on the right. So if I'm not making you nauseous, here we are coming up to the rest of the group. You're going to find that the floor goes down a long way below where we are. We're very far below where we are now.
Hi.
Hello.
Did you see, was he there or is he gone?
No, he was there. He was with David.
Okay, well David should come.
The original Jerusalem is down in the valley. It's outside the old city walls of today, David's city. David died. His son Solomon takes over. Solomon inherited to build the first temple. And where did he build the first temple? He built it on this hilltop, Mount Moriah. So Jerusalem was located down in the valley, and it stretched up to this hill over here. We're not even talking about the Kotel. It has nothing to do with the Western Wall yet. Solomon builds the first temple. There's reasons why he built it, not his father David. Solomon builds the first temple. It fit up there. It stood for around 400 years. The Babylonians come from the north and destroy the temple. The Jews are exiled for 70 years. During those 70 years, the story of Purim takes place. Purim took place in diaspora. The Jews come back under the leadership of Ezra and Nehemiah, two prophets, and they come to Jerusalem, rebuild the walls, and they rebuild the second temple. Somewhere's up on Mount Moriah. That stood for a few hundred years until King Herod comes around. King Herod was a Roman puppet. He was not Jewish. He was a great politician. He was a master builder. And what he decided to do was to remodel the second temple that was standing up there that Ezra and Nehemiah had built. It was up on this hill over here on Mount Moriah. What Herod did is where everything you see now comes from. What Herod did, his apparatus, his temple mountain was going to be so large he could not fit it on top of the hill. So what he did is, let's say, disregard the picture. Let's home where they had a hill and they wanted to is. Now, forget about the diagram. Let's say this is the western wall, this is the southern. We're right here at the corner. The western meets the southern. The building, the temple, stood more or less here. The entrance was facing east. You had to look towards the Mount of Olives. So the building was facing here. So we're now located over here. If you wanted to get as physically close as you could get to the temple without going up, you'd rather be in this section where the western wall is today. This happens to be miraculously that part has always remained. We never had to excavate to find it. And God talks about it, that he'll leave the western wall. You'll be able to always get as close as you can without going up on top. And the western wall where you're praying, again, is right here on the diagram, which is much closer physically to the temple than we are over here at the corner. Okay, and again, you have to remember, this has only been excavated after 1967. Till 67, there was, again, you can see where the stone gets dirty. That's where that has always been exposed. The Herodian levels were exposed during the excavations. There was actually a Jordanian girls' school right here on the corner. There was no excavations here whatsoever done by the Jordanians. This archway coming out over here that you see jutting out, the archaeologists came across that. You actually, before the excavations, you were able to touch the bottom stones of the archway. What they thought was this was an archway coming out, and then there would be another archway spanning the valley constantly till they got to the area where the Jewish quarter is. When they did the excavations, they found, how can you find out what was once standing if you find all the pieces and try to piece it together, and you see how many pieces do we find in one area? There must have been a structure here. No pieces are found in this area. There was nothing there. But they came across the conclusion was this was an archway which supported flight of steps going up, and then it made a turn down in this direction, And there were small forces in the Middle East is located right there. And they've been there since the War of Independence. The hill in front of us, that's called UN Hill. And behind Israel, actually, the policy is UN soldiers can come here to meet, come on vacation, be tourists, but you'll never see a UN soldier carrying a weapon in Israel. If they're on active, they're in active duty on the Golan Heights and in Lebanon, but when they come into Israel, they put down the weapons, they come here to do whatever they want. There have been cases where they found UN soldiers smuggling in weapons and explosives to Arabs here inside. There's a famous case of a high-ranking Nigerian officer who, the thing about Israel is, God forbid you feel bad or you have a heart attack on this, God forbid on the street, you could die because so many people trying to help you here in Israel. So what happened was the Nigerian officer was coming in a Jeep from wherever, coming up to Jerusalem. He had a flat tire on the way and everyone's coming to help him. And people noticed things and eventually they found he was bringing in weapons. So UN policy is, or Israeli policy, you don't see any UN soldiers with weapons in the country. They also drive their vehicles to the border, walk across the border, and then take another vehicle within the country. They don't cross, unless it's leaving. Okay, UN Hill, the Arab village of Silwan, the original city of David, is down in the valley. The water source is still active today from the time of David and before. That hill over there with the trees, that's a convent amongst the trees. Then to the right of that is an Arab high school, if I'm not mistaken, or elementary school. Excuse me? There's a house, and there's actually some Jews in a house that they moved in a couple weeks ago in the village of Silwan. People ask, how can the Israelis be having excavations in the city of David? There must be houses. The Rothschild family bought up a lot of the land that was vacant, and the Israelis are excavating on Israeli-owned land. Actually, the land in Israel is state-owned. When you buy a house, you lease it for 49 years, and then you renew the lease. So the convent and the trees to the left, that's an Arab hotel over there. That 4-story, 5-story building. The Mount of Olives off to your left. The Intercontinental Hotel today is known as the Seven Arches. That completes the view. And we don't see Mount Zion, which would be off to the right, the wall of the old city. And now we're actually outside the old city. Because the wall of the Temple Mount behind us becomes part of the old city wall. Okay,
Where's
now what did...
Maxwell buried?
What?
Where's what's his name? Maxwell? buried?
Maxwell, I don't know.
Somewhere on that.
They put the tinsel on after a month in the Mount of Olives. There's actually, the Mount of Olives goes off to the right, and there is another cemetery on the other side of town, Givat Shaul, called Har Menuchot. So why is the Mount of Olives so well known? According to Jewish law, you're to be buried outside the walls of a city. You don't have a cemetery inside a walled city. In those days, cities were walled. The Mount of Olives was never inside Jerusalem. Jerusalem was always, there's a huge valley between the old city and the Mount of Olives. So the wall of Jerusalem, at the most, went down and enclosed the city of David. It never enclosed that area. So to be buried right outside the wall of Jerusalem is right outside, right on the Mount of Olives.
Where's Gehenna, the Valley of Gehenna?
The Valley of Gehenna, the entrance to hell, the Talmud says there's 3 entrance ways to hell. One is in the sea, one is in the desert, and one is in the Valley of Gehenna, which means Gai ben Hinnom, the valley of the son of Hinnom. Gai ben Hinnom, Gehenna, is actually outside Jaffa Gate, and there's a mark that says hell off to your left. Where they have the amphitheater today, that is Gai ben Hinnom. One of the entranceways, that's not hell, that's one of the entranceways to hell. It hasn't been discovered. Okay, that takes care of the view. Now, what are we doing here? A Jew life better. When a Jew makes a mistake, an individual makes a non-wise sacrifice. When your rabbi, you can ask, what are we teaching you? You make a mistake, the Torah taught the book of Leviticus. You have the 5 books. Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus talks mainly about sacrifice. You make certain types of mistakes, you have to bring a certain type of sacrifice. Now let's say you're living in Tel Aviv, or Jaffa at the time, you make a certain mistake and you want to I want to get married together. It's not the way it should be. The Torah says what you got to do is you got to buy an animal, your own money, buy an animal, come up to Jerusalem. Come to Jerusalem, your animal comes up another way, and you start on these steps. You walk up these steps, you start to go up.
Look at the camel.
So the Levites, we have 3, you have the Cohens, the priests, the Levites and Israelites. The Cohens are the ones who worked up in the temple. The Levites are known as crowd control. They made the whole thing work. And the Israelites was everyone else. So you go up these steps. There's mikvahs in this whole area here. We can see as we leave. There's mikvahs, which is a spiritual purification, not physical. You have mikvahs. You go to the mikvah, you go up, and all of a sudden your animal's there. And the Kohen says, your hair is yours. And then this hair is yours. This is your animal. I don't know why you're here. And he says, okay, now you're supposed to take your hand, put it on the animal, and say this animal is me. The animal is me. The Cohen's watching it, and then the Cohen slaughters the animal. That's the animal. Right there. And then depending on whatever mistake you made, whatever type of animal, everything's symbolic. Certain parts were burnt, certain parts were, you roasted, you ate, priest ate. And it all depends, it's all very symbolic. You learn mainly the book of Leviticus to see what's going on. Each part of the body is symbolic, also human body. Kidney, heart, they represent certain things. And what you saw was life was taken away like that. And you had to go see it. You were up there. And all of a sudden it's like, wow, now that animal was supposed to be there. And you were there. And what happens after that, you come back down. And also you had music, you had incense, all the physical, everything you had, all the senses, everything was stimulating. It was a beautiful building, everything was awesome. And you make your way back down. And when you finally come back down here, you know what you realize? You realize how precious life is. And the things that are petty are petty. The things that are important are important. And I hope I will become a better individual through this. And again, it's not a gruesome thing. It was just something that it woke you up. Lots of people, like I say, have to carry your own have to carry your own beat. A lot of people are vegetarian. That things have changed culturally. But what happened was the sacrifice just woke you up. By the time you came back down, it was like now you're back amongst all the people. Moses came down from the Sinai, he had his tablets, and he broke them. So the Jews built the golden calf. He kept the pieces. He went up and got another set. They traveled. The Jews traveled in the desert for 40 years. It's called the tabernacle. It was a box. It was a tent. And they carried this around it. This was according to Judaism. The Almighty wrote these, gave them the measure. And then you had a physical thing. You saw that the Almighty has a special relationship with you. As they're going through the desert, manna fell. Every night. Every night. They woke up in the morning, there was manna on the ground. The Jews gathered the manna 40 years in the desert. When they came into Israel, it stopped. When the Jews came into Israel, they took a little canister of it. And remember, the Almighty can do miracles for us. He can provide for us. They kept Aaron's staff. Aaron, Moses' brother, kept the staff. Moses was writing the Torah as he went through the desert. At Sinai, he received the book, he received the Torah up to the point of where he was, the book of Exodus. And as he's going through, he's writing his own Torah. The Jewish people, when they came into Israel, they kept that also. They were 400 years in Israel until Solomon built the first temple. In that first temple, there was a room, and that's where everything was kept. That showed the beautiful link, the precious link that God had with the Jewish people. That was the There was a Jewish king named Josiah. He saw that there would be a non-Jewish nation coming to destroy the first temple, and he would take these things away. These were things that showed that the Jewish people has a special relationship. God has a special relationship with Jewish people. He buried underneath the Temple Mount tunnels, and he put everything there. The Babylonians eventually came and destroyed the first temple. When the Romans destroyed the second temple, you go to Rome, see the Arch of Titus. They have an engraving, the etching on the wall of the Romans carrying away the menorah. They wanted people to let them know they took away the menorah. No one ever talks about taking anything away out of the first temple. No one talks about it. No one talks about it. When people come to the wall, I work Aish full time, but when I take people touring, sometimes people come to the wall or come to Jerusalem for the first time. And I've actually had people come to the wall, and then they start to tremble a little bit cry. And they accept and they realize I'm not an emotional person. And I don't really, please excuse me, but do me a favor, explain to you why it's happening. So I explained every human being in this world has a body and has a soul. And in this hand, the flesh and bone, that's not really me. I'm what makes up my emotions, my feelings, that's my soul. You're taught not to judge people because you judge by what you physically see. That's not who the person is. The person may be the most non-attractive person in the world, but he's such a beautiful neshama, such a beautiful soul. That's who it is. What Jerusalem did when the Almighty gave the Jewish people the gifts, the Ten Commandments, the Torah, the Man, He showed, listen, I love you, and I'm with you. Just remember that. The Jewish people felt it. You feel like you're tingling to it. When someone really loves you so much, when you meet a long-lost relative or friend, when you go to the airport meeting Ethiopian Jews, you know what you have in common with them? Nothing except the fact you're Jewish. But you love this stuff. A Jew's hurting somewhere in San Francisco and you live in LA, you feel for the Jewish. Something they're finding. We're all in it together. When you come to Jerusalem, it's like a Geiger counter. Your soul is getting as close as the relationship to God is possible. You can feel close to God any place in the world, but physically, we live in a physical world. We relate to physical things much easier, like seeing is believing. Seeing is believing. You know why the Muslims block up, but they don't want people to walk inside? If you walk inside and see this beautiful tunnel, you say, wait a second, people really walked in here. You know, and if you did excavations and found a temple, you know, there really was a temple. Seeing is believing. That's politics. It's blocked up today. You're sitting on the steps today. That is about as physically oriented as you can get. It was a Jew who was coming up to Jerusalem 2,000 years ago, and Jews came up 2,000 years ago. They walked on these steps. They went through those gates. They were going somewhere. There was a temple up there. They were doing something. We write about what was going on up there. The last thing, why are these steps like this? One is short and one is long. One is long and short. Someone comes, you know, says, no, haven't you been to Athens, the Acropolis? They wanted to go to the pyramids. It's not easy to walk up, and it's the same concept. It's just not easy to walk up to the top. People didn't realize I want to make it easy, comfortable for people. We write about it, why we did it this way. Because you know, it's the first thing you have to do in order to change. You have to stop and slow down and think. Don't rush into it. Don't think, you know, we're perfect, or I'm always right, this guy's always wrong. Why don't you stop and reevaluate? That's what Sabbath is all about. Once a week, you sit and reevaluate the whole week, reevaluate your whole life, how you fit in the picture. You start going up these steps, one is short and one is wide. You can't hop and skip and jump your way up. Someone says, but they have this all over the place. All the other monumental structures in the world, they have the same thing. So I say, you know what the difference is between the Colosseum and the Great Wall and the Aztecs and the Incas and the pyramids? Those are all the great monumental structures in the world. You have the temple too. Everyone says the Jews have their temple, the biggest podium in the world. You know, there's two differences between the Jewish temple and every other structure in the world. All the other structures in the world, the people who built them didn't want to build. They were the slaves, and they had no choice. They had to do it. And the guy who was having it built usually thought he was God. They had to do it dead. It wasn't something that the people could use. The temple, the same sacrifice, the same prayer, the same judgment that a Jew could get, a non-Jew could get also. We're all people. The Jewish people may have another purpose. They have another mission to show how to use this physical world to get the maximum pleasure out of it. And the Almighty gave us a temple and said, listen, all the other nations in the world are going to try to do it also. They're going to use the same concept of smell and music and sacrifices and this and that. I'm going to give you the blueprint how to make it all fit. And the last thing is that all the other great monumental structures in the world, the other nations really don't want to have it rebuilt for anything near the same purpose that originally served. They may invest $10 million in Athens to support the Acropolis because of pollution and the vibrations of the trucks, because it'll bring in that much more money for tourism. But no one actually thinks in Greece that is really God's. And, you know, like the horse of the king is a god. No one in the Colosseum, you know, feeding people to the animals. It's not. If Saddam wanted the pyramid, he definitely would have built one. I mean, they just don't do it anymore. Jerusalem is a city of peace. It's not a city of peace. We say any two people can get together and reach a common conclusion, and there'll be peace and we'll live together. That's no big deal, even though we see it as really hard to do. But when you really think about it, people should get together and we should make peace. What is Jerusalem really? What does it mean, the city of peace? Each individual should be living with a peace that he understands the goal in life, what I really should be doing. And I'll finish by saying it's brought down, if the non-Jewish nations of the world knew what Jerusalem was, they would have had their armies surrounding the city, making sure no one would ever destroy it. Jerusalem was used by everyone. The Jews would use it to the maximum. Everyone would come, non-Jews, everyone would come to Jerusalem. They would see, and you also felt it. You felt something special. We're 2,000 years late. But still, if you think about it, if you try to feel it, people come to Israel and say, they come to Jerusalem every year, I feel a peace here. I get recharged when I come to Jerusalem. It's something special about it. It's like it's a Geiger counter. Your souls are back home, and it's like continuing to it. This is about, in my opinion, you go to the wall, which is, what's life all about? When these people came here, life was powerful. It was moving, never changed. The Torah says 3 times a year, Passover, Shavuos, and Sukkot, we come to Jerusalem. Everyone came. The whole year was decked with tents. Everyone was providing food for everyone. The Jewish people were unified 3 times a year. It was all because of the building that was located up. That was the focal point. A Jew prays any place in the world, that's the point of place. Today, take his ladder and open the prayer over there, go up, and all the Almighty's blessings, and then come down and come here and radiate not just to us, but every nation in the world. So if I have any questions, those who want, you can walk up, see the entrance to the gates. There's some mikvahs over here. A few minutes to the bus, and 10 minutes to be ready.
This is all on our brochure, eh?
Yeah. Oh, you do? Yeah. Good. Yeah. I don't want to get an Alice way.
How come it's not zooming?
Oh, you didn't open it.
Oh, here?
But they're still. Here. Can you get it?
I got up really close.
Okay. With me too?
Well, here we go. This is the second tell. The first one that they found was wrong. It was a little bit further from here. It was dated in a different date. But this one that they found is the actual site of Jericho, which coincides with the date in the Bible. This is the Jericho Valley. It's really lush.
I don't know if you know. Okay, we're on top of what is known as Tel Yericho. This is the intelligent archaeologist's dream, just to dig at a place this large, this tall, and you're going to find something. The main water source of Jericho is located right down here, where the blue pumps are coming out from the ground. It's known traditionally as Elisha's well. Elisha was a prophet. He was here. He took over right after Elijah, who this was the area that they were located in. And this is traditionally known as Elisha's fountain, or Elisha's well. This is all Jericho that you see in front of us. The hills of Jordan on the other side. You can see Jordanian villages at the base. The green fields also, where they're doing their farming. And if you halfway between us and them, we see it looks a little grayish. It looks like the Badlands Formation of the Dakotas down inside there. That's the Jordan River, which comes from the north on the left and goes to the south down to the right. The Dead Sea would be in that direction. The Judean hills, the desert ends right over here. You can see the remains of a monastery that's right in the gorge there on the sides of the hill. And on the opposite side, you can see some holes going into the sides of the canyon. There's an aqueduct that would catch the water, rainwater coming off from the top and bring it down into the waters. Those are water cisterns on the sides of the hill. It's the same concept how Herod stored water at Masada, catching the rainwaters from the top. And there's some more remains of another refugee camp in that direction. It's part of the one we saw before we came to Jericho. Okay, we're now on top of Jericho. And we all know the song, we all know about Joshua. Moses brings the Jewish people out of Egypt. The Torah received, at Sinai received the Torah, 40 years in the desert. They came up from the south eventually, and there's a mountain on the other side called Mount Nebo, and that's where Moses dies, and his burial place is not known. Moses dies on the other side, does not come into Israel. Joshua takes over, and he comes, brings the people into Eretz Yisrael, the land of Israel. Now, if you notice, what is like one of the main things in the Jewish year is Passover. It's the Seder. Now, the two most important things, or two things that people remember about Pesach, if you open the Torah and you look, when Jewish people left Israel, the first thing Moses did before they left Egypt, the Jewish people were circumcised. Circumcised all the people. And they had a Seder. It was Pesach. It was like the first Seder. This is it. You know, we didn't have the Haggadah to look and see how you're supposed to do it. They actually lived the Seder. And they came out, they left Egypt. And as they left, we had the splitting of the Red Sea, and it was miraculous. This was the birth of the Jewish people. Jewish people were right into the desert 40 years. They made a mistake, and they had to wander for 40 years in the desert. They had miracles for them, taking place right and left while they're in the desert. They finally come to the other side. They're about to cross in, and the worst thing that could possibly happen is their leader can't take them in, and he dies. Joshua takes over, Now, if you study in the book of Joshua, right after the 5 books of Moses, the next book is Joshua. That's the way it works. And what does Joshua do before the Jewish people come into Israel? Everyone is circumcised. There wasn't circumcision in the desert for 40 years. The Jewish people, they did circumcision. And guess when it was, the time when they came into Eretz Israel? It was Pesach. They had a Seder before coming into Israel. And they had to cross over the Jordan. See, we don't stop. We don't just read the 5 books and stop. You continue reading, see what happens next. The Jewish people cross over the Jordan, not over a bridge. Your Almighty's telling Joshua, listen, what you do is you have the Kohanim carry the tabernacle. This is the box that eventually had a place up in the temple. In the box it had the tablets, it had the Torah that Moshe wrote, it had the canister of man, and they bring it across. They're carrying it, there's special people to carry it. Everyone had their job depending on families. They walk into the waters and the waters split. You see the same thing happening that took place when they left Egypt. The waters stopped. The waters from the north stopped, the waters from the south stopped, and the Jewish people cross over. They cross over the river, and they encamp on the other side. The same parallel to what took place leaving Egypt takes place when they come into Israel. Just like leaving Egypt was the birth of Jewish people, this is like not a rebirth, but the same importance you took to your creation of being created as a people leaving Egypt. You're now doing the same thing. You're now being created at a higher level. You're coming to a special place. There you're in the desert. It's interesting. Torah was given in the desert. Here Torah is going to have a home. They come into Egypt. They come into Israel. The same things take place. What does Joshua do? He sends out some spies. They come. The first city they have to meet is right here. It's Jericho. Here's the main water source, and it's right in the major crossroads going north-south. We're talking about the Canaanites. The people are here in Jericho, and Wadi Kelt is over there, leading up into Jerusalem. This is the city you have to. If you want to make a foothold in the city, in the country, this is the place you have to come to first. They're waiting for you. So you figured it'd be just a natural battle. The people would come and they'd fight the city. The spies come and say, Joshua, we can take care of the city. Don't worry, it's okay. They made a mistake before. Under Moses, the spies went in and said, we can't take Israel. Here, Joshua does the whole thing again, but it's done right. The spies come, we can take it. So Joshua gets all the Jewish people together and said, we're going to Jericho. But you know what we're going to do? We're going to have everyone. We're going to have the Kohanim, the people carrying the tabernacle, the ark. They're going to circle the city one time for 6 days. And at the end of each time they circle, we're going to blow the shofar. Can you imagine the people in Jericho, this is Jericho, watching Jewish people come. They walk around. Toot, toot, toot. And that's it. And they go and they rest. For 6 days they come and do it. One day after, on the 7th day, they come to Jericho. And this is written, you didn't read the book of Joshua, this is what's going on. The 7th day they circle the city 7 times. This is what Joshua said. 7th day we'll circle 7 times, blow the shofar, and the walls are going to come. The city will be ours. And the Jewish people, you know, this is again, they just gone through circumcision, they just had the Seder, everyone's together. They just had this miracle, and now, our kids, whatever you say, Josh, you know, for 40 years we've been having miracles, let's see what happens here. And it's not Moshe anymore, it's Joshua. Like, Moshe's gone. The miracle maker, whatever. Moshe's gone, now there's another person in command, like, and he's alone, he's up front. And Joshua was a leader, let's not fool ourselves. So they do it each day. On the 7th day, they circle around the city, they blow the shofar, and the walls come tumbling down, and they go right into the city. What did Joshua tell the people? Listen, this is what's going to happen, but I want to make one thing perfectly clear. No one takes any spoils from the city. No one touches. There's not one thing you take from this city. There was a man who took something, took some gold, took some silver, didn't tell anyone. The walls of Jericho fell down, and Jewish people took over Jericho, and they went the next place. They wanted to go up into the hills. We have to get up to the hills. Joshua says, listen, I know what we're supposed to be doing. Let's go up. Israel's ours. The next place they go to is called the Eye. It's spelled in English, A-I. And what happens? They meet defeat. Oh, what's going on, Joshua? What's going on? How could it be that we went and we lost some of our men? We've just been having miracles. We saw the walls come down. Joshua said, listen, something is wrong here. Something didn't, it was all going letter perfect. Something happened. They eventually found out that someone took something. And that was a mistake. What do we learn from the whole thing here at Jericho? They eventually found the person. And then they went up to the Eye again, and they conquered it and continued going. Before we talk about what they found here, let's talk about what they found. I was just told by someone that I remember reading an article. I glanced at it.